Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior leaned into the gonzo absurdity of George Miller's post-apocalyptic wasteland, realizing the vision that he didn't have the money to pull off the first time. While the original Mad Max is a timeless gem, the series didn't become the uniquely bleak, surreal, high-octane action franchise it is today until Miller expanded the wasteland in The Road Warrior. The first film is a dystopian police thriller set in a world on the brink of a gas-guzzling apocalypse, but the second film took it way past the brink to the desolate badlands that remain. Since Miller was working from a shoestring budget in his independent directorial debut, he could only fulfill a fraction of his vision of a lawless post-apocalyptic world. But Mad Max proved to be successful enough for Miller to complete his vision in the bigger-budgeted sequel. Mad Max is a great movie, as evidenced by its impressive Rotten Tomatoes score, which was matched by Furiosa earlier this year, but The Road Warrior is even greater. Until Fury Road came along in 2015, The Road Warrior was widely regarded to be the best Mad Max film, and this big change is why. Mad Max 2 fully embraces the outlandish nature of the first movie's apocalypse. The Road Warrior goes into the heart of the wasteland. Mel Gibson with a shotgun in Mad Max 2. The first Mad Max film takes place in a dystopian near future where widespread ecocide and oil shortages have led to a breakdown in civil order. But there's still a law enforcement body in operation that's the last line of defense against the outlaw bikers and sadistic berserkers rapidly taking over the world. Fearless Max Rokitansky is the top bounty hunter working for the Main Force Patrol, an underfunded police force desperately trying and failing to maintain law and order as the world descends into chaos. Whereas the rest of the Mad Max saga is post-apocalyptic, the first film is pre-apocalyptic. Mad Max 2, on the other hand, takes Miller's curious sci-fi universe way past the brink of annihilation to the ruins of that annihilation. The Earth is a cold, unforgiving desert as far as the eye can see, and the survivors have congregated in various makeshift towns and communities, constructed with scrap metal. The original movie had introduced Max's driving motivation, the grisly tone of Miller's filmmaking, and the frenetic pace and style of his action scenes. But the Mad Max universe wasn't fully formed until The Road Warrior came along. Mad Max's success allowed the sequel to properly realize George Miller's vision. Mad Max was such a hit that Miller could secure 10 times the budget for Mad Max 2. As a first-time filmmaker with a really weird vision, Miller could only secure a budget of somewhere between $350,000 Australian dollars and $400,000 Australian dollars for the first Mad Max movie, via Vanity Fair. That was enough to cover some big action scenes, like a car chase and an explosion, but it wasn't enough to transform his shooting locations into a barren wasteland. Against all odds, the original Mad Max became a massive blockbuster. It earned over $100 million at the box office, making Mad Max the most profitable movie ever made. The film's success allowed Miller a much larger budget for the sequel. According to David Stratton's book The Avocado Plantation, Boom and Bust in the Australian Film Industry, Mad Max 2 was afforded a budget of $4.5 million Australian dollars, more than 10 times what the original movie cost. This allowed Miller to finally realize his vision of a gonzo post-apocalyptic wasteland full of bleak landscapes and gas-guzzling marauders. The Mad Max universe as it's known today, and as it always existed in Miller's imagination, was born. Mad Max 2 is a rare example of a sequel that's bigger and better. Most sequels go bigger, but very few are better. Mad Max 2 is a rare example of a sequel that's both bigger and better than its predecessor. It's par for the course for a sequel to go bigger than its predecessor, with a larger scale, higher narrative stakes, and more explosive action. The Terminator is a low-budget tech-noir slasher. Terminator 2, Judgment Day is a giant, action-packed blockbuster. First Blood is an intimate small-town cat-and-mouse thriller. Rambo, First Blood Part 2 is a loud, gun-toting action epic. But it's rare that those bigger sequels are actually better than the original. Usually, in expanding the scale, a sequel loses the magic that made the original so great. Mad Max 2 is a rare example of a sequel that goes bigger with the spectacle, but also improves on the storytelling and characterization of its predecessor. Mad Max is a very straightforward revenge story. The Road Warrior is more like a post-apocalyptic spaghetti western about a lone warrior protecting an innocent community from a nefarious gang. Along with The Godfather Part 2 and The Empire Strikes Back, Mad Max 2 is one of the greatest sequels ever made.